Hi, my name is Kelsey Linskov, and I'm a graduate teaching assistant in the Communication Studies department. And today I will be talking about delivery. Delivery is the most visual element of a speech, and it encompasses many elements such as how you present your speech. Delivery is just as important as the message you are conveying to your audience. The speeches you prepare are carefully planned, researched, and constructed. However, the words you speak cannot stand alone. Your eye contact, hand gestures, movement, posture, and facial expressions enhance that message you are conveying to your audience. The objectives you should take away from learning about delivery are the different modes of delivery, components such as verbal and physical delivery, and some tips as to how to execute good delivery in your speech. First, I'm going to discuss the different modes of delivery, and there are 4 different modes. There are memorized, manuscript, impromptu, and extemporaneous. A memorized speech is basically a speech in which the speaker has no notes but has committed the entire speech to memory. Memorized speeches have been quite common. However, it is highly recommended that you do not memorize your speech for this class. Reasons for this are sometimes in a memorized speech, the speaker might forget what they are going to say, causing them to freeze and create an awkward situation. Also, memorized speeches may seem less natural, and the speaker may appear less fluid and conversational. So now that I've discussed the memorized speech, I will discuss the manuscript speech. A manuscript speech is written word for word in an essay format. We see a lot of these types of speeches delivered by politicians and news anchors using a teleprompter. A manuscript speech has both advantages and disadvantages. The advantages you can have with a manuscript is that you can plan what you want to say word for word, making sure everything is correct, and this is why we see this being used by news anchors. They must be sure all of their information is correct and that it is delivered in a precise time frame. Disadvantages of speaking from a manuscript relates back to the memorized speaking. When speaking from a manuscript, you may sound less fluid and less conversational. Eye contact is mostly gone, and you may be restricted in regards to movement. Now that manuscript speaking has been discussed, I would like to shift to impromptu speaking. An impromptu speaking is a style of delivery that takes the least amount of preparation and at times can prove nerve-wracking for some people. These types of speeches usually occur when someone is asked to say a few words. You may have already done an impromptu speech simply by being in a conversational setting. Even introducing yourself in class or answering a question in class can be considered impromptu speaking. Now that I've discussed memorized, manuscript, and impromptu speaking, I will discuss the last mode, which is extemporaneous. Extemporaneous speaking is the most important element you will need to know for this course because this is the style that you will be using to prepare each speech you will give. It is the most natural sounding speech and it is researched, practiced, and polished. Extemporaneous speaking involves speaking from the outline but is not memorized or reading directly from a manuscript. This type of speaking allows you to keep eye contact with your audience and allows you to adapt to how the audience is responding to you. There is also not the pressure of memorization or cadence of the written essay. So now that I've discussed the different modes of delivery, I'm going to talk to you about the different components of verbal and physical delivery. The first element of verbal delivery is pronunciation. Literally, pronunciation means what a word sounds like when it is spoken. When delivering a speech, you should always make sure that you know how to pronounce each word correctly. If you do not know how to pronounce a word and mispronounce it in your speech, you can lose credibility from your audience or sound like you did not prepare. The second element of verbal delivery is articulation. Articulation is physically producing the sound that makes the word. Articulation is important because you do not want your words to run together. Try to avoid combining words such as kind of, which can sometimes be mashed into kinda, and should have or could have can sometimes be mashed into shoulda or coulda. So make sure your words are clear and do not run together in your speech. The third element of verbal delivery is volume. The volume element is important because you want your audience to hear your message clearly. You want to consider both trying not to speak too softly or too loudly. The fourth element of verbal delivery is pitch, and pitch encompasses how high or low your voice is, in addition to the fall and rise of your voice. The fifth element of verbal delivery is rhythm. The rhythm is the tempo of our voice. Sometimes when we get nervous, when we speak, our voice tends to become repetitive, and it takes away from the meaning of our message. Try to keep your voice natural when speaking, and getting a lot of practice in will help this. The sixth element of verbal delivery is rate, or the speed of which we speak. When we deliver a speech in class or in a group of people, sometimes our rate tends to speed up because we may get nervous. Remember to practice your speech and try and speak a little slower when delivering your speech to ensure your rate is in check. The seventh element of verbal delivery is tone, and tone is concerned with the emotional quality of your speech. It is important when delivering your speech, you do not want to sound monotone or boring to your audience, but you do not want to sound overly excited either. The eighth and final element of verbal delivery are vocalized pauses. And vocalized pauses are also referred to as filler words. Many times and you know are also considered verbal adapters. And a few of these are okay to have in your speech, but try to limit them in your speech. Keep in mind to take those pauses in your speech, for this lets the audience take in the information you present to them, especially when transitioning between your main points and your subpoints. Not only is verbal delivery an important aspect of your speech, but so is physical delivery. Physical delivery is an important aspect of your speech because it's the first thing your audience sees. And there are 5 components to physical delivery. And the 5 components are apparel, posture, facial expressions, eye contact, and gestures. When it comes to apparel, you need to make sure you are dressed for the occasion. If you are giving a toast for a wedding or a eulogy at a funeral, you will most likely have a certain dress code to abide by. When you're presenting a speech in this class, you should dress as you would for a professional job interview. You should also be well groomed and not wearing a hat or headphones around your neck or in your ears. The second element of physical delivery is posture, and posture is concerned with how you hold yourself. When delivering your speech, you should hold yourself poised and relaxed. You want to look natural and poised to your audience, but not holding yourself so it looks threatening to them. Also, be careful not to lock your knees because it is possible that this could cause you to pass out. The third element of physical delivery are facial expressions. And facial expressions are important because they reflect the tone of the occasion. You want to make sure your expressions mirror the content of your speech so that it is appropriate for your audience. The fourth element of physical delivery is eye contact, and I cannot stress enough how important eye contact is. When you make eye contact with your audience members, you are building rapport with them. When making eye contact with your audience, you want to make sure you keep eye contact with individuals rather than at the wall or at the back of the room or the windows. Think of it like this. Make eye contact with the members of your audience and think about it as having an individual conversation with each one. However, do not worry about keeping constant eye contact because it's okay to consult your notes now and again. The fifth element of physical delivery is gestures. And this element encompasses your hand and arm movement. Gestures can be tricky sometimes and can affect your speech negatively if you do not use them purposefully or if you overuse them. Gestures should be used when stating the important ideas of your speech and discussing your main points with your finger signals. Now that I've discussed the modes of delivery, the verbal and physical elements of delivery, I'll wrap things up with some tips on how to enhance your delivery. First, practice, practice, practice. Try not to work on the speech until last minute. Utilize the time you have to practice not only the information of your speech, but the delivery component as well. You can practice in front of a mirror or in front of friends to assist you in your practice. Second, figure out what rhythm works for you. Everyone speaks with different tones and rates. Find what is comfortable for you so that your speech will feel natural and less forced. And finally, when making your outline, you can put your delivery cues on the outline. This will aid you in making sure your delivery is effective throughout your speech. Remember, it's not just a message you are giving your audience that is important. It's also how you present the information. Good delivery makes for an even better speech.